Depending on who you ask, they will tell you that Donald Trump is the least transparent, least honest, or most transparent and most honest. That's why I was absolutely surprised when I saw The Intercept. The Intercept. Okay, if you don't know what that, it's Left. Okay, it's Glenn Greenwald. This Thanksgiving, I'm grateful for Donald Trump, America's most honest president. What? Okay, Glenn Greenwald is on the left. I could be wrong because I don't follow him extensively, but I remember when Alyssa Milano called out the Women's March, individuals from the Women's March, Linda Sarsour and Tamika Mallory, for their association with Farrakhan. He said that was, privilege, the whole left-wing social justice, identity politics narrative. Now, this is not Glenn Greenwald writing this, but The Intercept is left, and they just said, what? This has got to be a trick, right? It's got to be a trick. Let's read this. There's no question that Donald Trump is the most flagrantly, compulsively, and voluminously dishonest president in American history, which is saying something given the competition. He's probably told 27 more lies during the time it took you to read this one sentence. Okay, now that flies in the face of the headline. Something's going on here. But as preposterous as it sounds, there's a case to be made that he's simultaneously America's most honest president. Every now and then, in the midst of his unending eruption of prevarication, come on guys, Trump will blurt out the truth about the United States in a way that no normal politician ever has. Or perhaps, Donald Trump isn't intentionally lying most of the time, he's just wrong. Look, I'm of the belief that Donald Trump lies, but he's mostly wrong. And I think it's how people assume intention. When I watch him speak and he says something that's incorrect, I'm like, yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Same thing with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They'll say that Cortez's claims are false or untrue. People on the right will call her a liar, and I'm like, no, she's just dumb. Now, I wouldn't call Donald Trump dumb, because that kind of implies like a lack of ability. To Cortez's credit, I think dumb is a bit unfair too. I'd say she's ignorant and inexperienced, and she doesn't know what she's talking about. Trump is clever. He's a clever guy. He's a schemer, right? When I look at Trump, I think he's certainly off the cuff. I think he's wrong about a lot of things. I think he gets some things right, and he deserves credit when he does. But for the most part, if you guys watch my channel, I'm not a big fan of the guy. But I'm also not a crazy person. I'm not a fan of Trump in pretty much the same way I'm not a fan of Obama. But I think the media calls Trump a liar all the time, and I'm like, yeah, but maybe he's just wrong about this stuff. And if that's true, they say he's simultaneously the most honest president here, and I think that's saying something. It really is. Because when you consider that Trump on a lot of things is wrong, and on a lot of things is being bluntly honest, then it stands to reason he's actually more honest, just doesn't know as much about what he thinks he does. So look at it this way. You have a couple scenarios. If you think Trump isn't wrong, then he must be lying when he says things that aren't true. I don't think that's fair. I think he does lie sometimes. All politicians do. Trump can't be honest about... And I can also say there are certain instances where the politicians absolutely have to lie, right? And that's why I'm not a big fan of politicians as a whole. The point is, if you believe he's a liar, but sometimes being honest, how can you simultaneously say he's just the most dishonest president, but also the most honest? I think it stands to reason he's wrong about a lot of things, and then he's just blatantly honest about a lot of other things. Well, let's see what they say. Most recently, when asked whether he would consider sanctioning Saudi Arabia for its mafia-like murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, Trump was hesitant. Why? Because they are ordering military... Why? Because they are ordering military equipment. Everybody in the world wanted that order. Russia wanted it, China wanted it, we wanted it, we got it. Boeing, Lockheed, Raytheon. I don't want to lose an order like that. So, getting the Saudis to gift as much of their oil profits as possible to the U.S., particularly when it boosts large defense contractors, has been a priority of every president since World War II. During the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, the chairs of ExxonMobil, Texaco, and Standard of California, that is, the four American corporations engaged with Saudi state oil company Aramco, wrote to then-President Richard Nixon, if the U.S. was seen to be openly supporting Israel, they warned, the whole position of the United States in the Middle East is on the way to being seriously impaired, with Japanese, European, and perhaps Russian interests largely supplanting United States presence in the area. then Secretary of State Henry Kissinger obediently arranged for American arms to be shipped to Israel as inconspicuously as possible. Indeed, the money that flows to U.S. multinationals due to our relationship with the Saudis may be a key reason that America has been able to run huge trade deficits for decades without damage to our economy. But that's not the kind of thing any standard issue high-level politician can say. Prior to Trump, Americans can only get this kind of honesty from fiction, as in the famous diatribe by the chair of a huge conglomerate in Network. The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of this country, and now they must put it back. It's ebb and flow, tidal gravity. It is ecological balance. There is no America. There is no democracy. There is only IBM, ITT, AT&T, DuPont, Dow, Union Carbide, Exxon. And Trump's Saudi comments are just a sampling of his startling truth-telling. Other examples include, during a 2016 Republican presidential debate, Trump said, obviously the war in Iraq was a big fat mistake. We should have never been in Iraq. They lied. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. At the time, this seemed like standing up in the Vatican and declaring the whole concept of the Holy Trinity is stupid. But it turned out that GOP voters weren't bothered by Trump's reckless accuracy. Furthermore, just before the 2016 election, Trump declared that America had wasted $6 trillion on wars in the Middle East. We could have rebuilt our country twice. That have produced only more terrorism, more death, and more suffering. Imagine if the money had been spent at home. We've spent $6 trillion, lost thousands of lives. You could say hundreds of thousands of lives, because look at the other side also. All of this was true, with the slight caveat that while the wars will eventually cost at least $6 trillion, we haven't paid out all that money yet. Trump's reference to the huge number of foreigners our wars have killed and implication that their deaths were a bad thing was particularly unpresidential. But maybe now, people like The Intercept understand why Trump got the votes. You want to call Trump a liar all day and night, by all means, right? If he's getting something wrong, you can assume that he's lying, or you can assume he's just incorrect. But look at this statement. Trump up on stage did say the wars in the Middle East were a bad idea. He did talk about these things. And I think this is something else that speaks to so many people when it comes to foreign policy. Trump was being blunt and honest. The lives lost on both sides was a bad thing. The amount of money we're spending, it's a waste of time. You can spend it here. Reinvigorate jobs. That didn't sound like a traditional Republican. And it's funny now that this article is being written, and I'm sure there's going to be tons of Trump supporters who are like, yeah, we know. That's exactly why they supported him. That's exactly why people want to vote for Trump, among other things. It's like The Intercept is now realizing that on foreign policy issues, Trump's straight up like, yeah, we want Saudi Arabians to give us money for weapons. We want to fund the military-industrial complex. And people are just straight up confused because the left maybe isn't paying attention to this stuff. They're too focused on cultural issues, I think. Often when they talk about people like Ocasio-Cortez, they say, what's your foreign policy position? And that's what the left is missing. Democrats don't talk about this stuff. I don't think they're paying attention. Because to people on the right, when you're hearing Trump be straight up like, here's what's going on in the Middle East, here's what we're doing in Saudi Arabia, they're like, they're shocked, you know? During the 2016 campaign, Trump referenced the strong possibility that factions of the Saudi royal family were complicit in the 9/11 attacks in the context of the Bush administration's decision to evade Iraq. He said, who blew up the World Trade Center? It wasn't the Iraqis. Take a look at Saudi Arabia. Open the documents, he said on Fox and Friends. Yet more strangely for a Republican, Trump also acknowledged that George W. Bush was president in 2001 and might bear responsibility for what happened. The CIA said there was a lot of information that something like that was going to happen. Trump said during a CBS interview in February 2016. Could he have done something about it? Well, his CIA said they knew about things happening. Yes. The CIA called it blowback. They said our operations in the Middle East was going to result in attacks on us. Trump talked about it. Trump said this before, but I'm pretty sure something happened. Like he wrote before 9/11 happened. He wrote in a book about Bin Laden and about the potentials. And I think what's interesting here is, I'm sure there are a lot of people at The Intercept and conflict journalists who know Trump has said these things. But it's almost like this article is the left discovering that Trump has been extremely blunt about American foreign policy for a while now. And they're kind of shocked to discover that he's being completely honest. I mean, can we go back up and just look at the title of this article? America's most honest president. What's funny is they still want to assume the things he says for the most part are lies. And again, I think it's fair to say politicians lie. Trump's no exception. But again, they're taking things that he's wrong about and assuming they're lies. Because I see this a lot. I see a lot of the things Trump says, they're just plain wrong. And like, he's lying. I'm like, whoa. Maybe he's just He doesn't know what he's talking about. There's a difference. Maybe Trump speaks authoritatively on things he isn't 100, he doesn't know, but things he does know. There's a difference between intentionally trying to mislead people and just not having your facts straight. And I think, I think when you look at how honest he's been on foreign policy, it's The Intercept, of all places, reporting this. Well, so they go through a bunch of other things where they talk about Trump being extremely honest. He's got one tweet they highlight. This is from 2015. I wish good luck to all of the Republican candidates that traveled to California to beg for money from the Koch brothers. Puppets? I turned on a meeting with Charles and David Koch. Much better for them to meet with the puppets of politics. They will do much better. Trump even specifically called out pharmaceutical and defense corporations for ripping off U.S. taxpayers because they have a fantastic lobby. They take care of all the senators, the congressmen. They have great power. Look, I don't need to read any more of this. This article goes on. Let's read the closing. He says, leaders who want to tell the truth in hopes of changing the world can rationally give it a shot and see what happens. As we say grace this Thanksgiving, we should consider giving thanks for this unexpected but real forward progress. Right? Maybe you should consider that there was a reason people voted for Donald Trump, and that it's not all about these fringe, far-right, weird conspiracies the left paints on the right. It deflects from these real things Trump has done. Look at all these 60 Minutes interview, all the things he's talked about. Interview on Trump said this about Nancy Pelosi. She wanted a speaker. I was impressed with her. He called Ted Cruz a Lion Ted. Indeed, Ted, what did he say? Trump's 2016 nickname for Ted Cruz is Lion Ted. Cruz is indeed a huge liar. The point is, The Intercept, a left-wing outlet, they're not the worst by no means. I think the Intercept is pretty okay, but they're pretty ideologically bent, is straight up publishing an article calling Trump the most honest president. He's not perfect. I personally wouldn't call him the most honest president, but I would say he's absolutely more honest in a lot of different areas. Anyway, that's about it for this video. I've got some more videos coming up in just a few minutes. Conspiracy theories from the left and the right in the election. Both sides are making accusations, and both sides are accusing each other of being conspiracy theorists. That video should be up in a few minutes, or probably now. Check out my channel.